In the heart of my village, nestled amongst ancient Iroko trees and whispering palms, stood a house that time had forgotten. It wasn't just old, it was a scar on the landscape, a place the sun seemed to avoid and the birds refused to sing near. We called it House of No Return. It was a very strange house. Its windows were like vacant eyes, and its door, a grimacing mouth that had long since swallowed its last inhabitant. The elders told stories, their voices dropping to a hush, of the wealthy trader who built it, a man who dabbled in things best left undisturbed. They said his spirit, and the spirits he'd summoned, were still trapped within its decaying walls, hungry for company. For most of us kids, these were just stories, thrilling tales to tell around a flickering lamp when the moon was hidden. But for Adawale, they were a challenge. Eric was 12, with a spirit as bright and untamed as a bush fire. He was the fastest runner, the best at climbing mango trees, and the undisputed king of their childhood games. Fear was a language he didn't seem to understand. He laughed at the stories of the House of No Return, his bright eyes dancing with mischief. He called us cowards, his voice ringing with the easy confidence of a boy who had never known true terror. We remember the day it happened as if it were etched into our memories. The air was thick and heavy, the kind that promises a fierce thunderstorm. Eric and his friends were gathered under the shade of a large cashew tree, arguing about who was the bravest. The conversation, as it often did, turned to the House of No Return. That's when Samuel, always a bit of a troublemaker, pointed a finger at Eric. "If you're so brave, Eric," he sneered, "I dare you to go inside the House of No Return. Stay until the first clap of thunder." A silence fell over our group. This wasn't a simple dare like stealing a biscuit from a market stall. This was different. This was the House of No Return. We all looked at Eric, expecting him to laugh it off, to call Samuel a clown and suggest a different challenge. But he didn't. A strange light entered his eyes. He stood up, dusted off his shorts, and puffed out his chest. "Fine," he said, his voice a little too loud. "It's just an old house. What's there to be afraid of?" They tried to stop him. "Eric, don't be stupid," they pleaded, grabbing his arm. "It's not a game." He just shook them off, a stubborn set to his jaw. "Don't worry, guys," he said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'll be back before you know it. Wait for me here." And with that, he turned and started walking towards the house. They watched, a knot of dread tightening in our stomachs, as his small, determined figure grew smaller and smaller. He didn't hesitate at the crumbling gate. He pushed open the heavy wooden door, which groaned in protest, and disappeared into the darkness within. The door swung shut behind him with a final, echoing boom that seemed to shake the very ground. They waited. The minutes stretched into an eternity. The sky grew darker, the promised storm gathering its strength. They strained their ears, listening for any sound from the house, but there was only a chilling silence. They called his name, their voices small and trembling against the vast, quiet dread of the place. "Eric, Eric." There was no reply. The wind began to howl, whipping leaves and dust into frantic spirals. Then, it happened. A brilliant fork of lightning split the sky, followed almost instantly by a deafening clap of thunder that rattled their bones. That was the signal. Samuel's dare was complete. "He's coming out now," Samuel said, though his voice lacked its earlier bravado. They all stared at the door, expecting it to burst open at any moment, with Eric striding out, laughing at our fear. But the door remained shut. The thunder rolled again, closer this time, and the first heavy drops of rain began to fall. Panic started to set in. They screamed his name again and again, their voices swallowed by the rising storm. Still nothing. The rain became a torrential downpour, and one by one, overcome by fear, the others scattered, running for the shelter of their homes. But one of them stayed behind. Eric was his best friend, and he was in that house. He stayed, huddled under the cashew tree, soaked to the bone, his eyes fixed on that monstrous door. No one knows how long he waited. but he said it felt like a lifetime. The storm raged, and then, as suddenly as it had begun, it subsided, leaving behind a world washed clean and eerily quiet. Just as the first sliver of dawn painted the eastern sky, the door to the house of no return creaked open. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the gloom. It was Eric. Victor cried out his name in relief, ready to run to him, to scold him and hug him. But he froze. This was Eric, but it wasn't. He was walking slowly, with a strange, shuffling gait, his head bowed. His vibrant clothes were torn and coated in dust and cobwebs. But that wasn't what was wrong. As he drew closer, he saw his face. The mischievous spark in his eyes was gone, replaced by a dull, empty hollowness. It was like looking into two dark, vacant windows. "Eric," he whispered, his voice trembling. He didn't seem to hear him. He walked right past him, his eyes fixed on something far away that only he could see. He didn't respond to any of Victor's calls. He just kept walking, a silent, haunted shell of the boy who had walked into that house just hours before. Eric never spoke again, not a single word. He wouldn't play with his friends. He wouldn't even look at them either. He would just sit for hours, staring into space, his hands sometimes trembling. His laughter, which once filled their days, was gone forever, replaced by a profound, unnerving silence. The doctors had no explanation. His parents, heartbroken, tried everything: traditional healers, modern medicine, but nothing could bring back the son they had lost. The fire in Eric had been extinguished, leaving only cold, gray ash. The village changed after that. No one dared to even look at House of No Return anymore. It was no longer a place of thrilling stories. It was a place of real, tangible sorrow. They all grew up, and life moved on. But the memory of that day never faded. People often wonder what Eric saw in that house. What horror did he witness that was so profound it stole his voice, his spirit, his very soul? What ancient, hungry thing did he encounter in the darkness? Sometimes, late at night, I think I hear a faint sound on the wind, a sound like a boy's laughter, cut short, and I look towards the hill where the strange house still stands, a dark silhouette against the moon, and I feel a chill that has nothing to do with the night air. They never got their friend back. He went into the house to prove his bravery, but he left his laughter, his light, and his voice behind, and all they left with was a terrible, unanswered question. What happens when you walk into the dark, and the dark decides to keep a part of you? The story of Eric became the village's new cautionary tale, a permanent reminder that some doors are best left unopened. Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales from Night Tales Naija. Stay safe out there.